Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Sam Hayes, Samuel by the name of my channel, and today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a video breakdown on the top 10 reasons why you should vote for Bernie Sanders and why you should convince others to vote for Bernie Sanders. So I'm simply going to title this video, I think, Why Bernie Sanders, and let's get right into it. So I'm going to count down from 10 to 1, obviously 10 being the least important and 1 being the most important. But to be honest with you, all these things are important in my mind, and they're also not in, like, you can rearrange the list however you want. Just the number one thing to me is the most important thing to me, but it may not be the most important thing to you because maybe you have this thing, you already have this thing when I don't have this thing, or you can, it's all interchangeable. They're all good things. They're not set in stone. But to me, this is the top 10 list for my experience as to why I want Bernie Sanders to be elected. So let's get right into it. So number 10, I have experience. Now, experience is a shaky thing in my mind because it's not all that. That's why I have it at 10. To be honest, I don't care if you have experience or not, as long as your policy positions are the correct thing and you're gonna fight for working people. But the reason I put it down is because he was a mayor for, I don't even know how many years. He was he was in the House and now he's in the Senate. So I think that counts for something. And it's good experience in my mind. So that's why I put experience down. That does not mean that you're discluded because you don't have experience. I don't have any political experience, and I hope somebody wouldn't disclude me from running in a race if I were to do that, just because I didn't have any. But I think that it does count for something. So that's why I put it at 10. Number 9, I have he beats Trump. In my mind, it's obviously we want to beat Donald Trump. That's clear and obvious. If you're watching this video, that's clear and obvious. We need to defeat Donald Trump. But the reason I put it at number 9 as not as most important is because it's not just about beating him. It's about what you're going to do after you beat him. So I don't want somebody who is going to come in and beat Trump and then just do nothing and keep the status quo, and just keep chugging along and go back to 1990s where, you know, you're all proper and formed or whatever. That's why I think it's important to beat Trump, but I also think that it's not everything, because I don't want you to just beat Trump. I want you to actually implement policy ideas and implement things that are going to help working people. So that's why I put that at number 9. At number 8, I put he'll create millions of jobs. And to me, I put it at number 8 because in my mind, it's all these things are extremely important. So you don't really have to list it, but I don't know what, that's just where I put it. And the way we do that is we create millions of jobs through a thing called the Green New Deal, which I'll get into later. But also he gets out of terrible trade agreements like permanent normal trade relations with China, the TPP, NAFTA, all these different things. So we pull out of those and we quit outsourcing jobs, and that brings back good jobs. And I'm not just talking about creating jobs because that's irrelevant. We want to create good paying jobs that are actually going to help people. And the way we'll do that is I'll get into a little bit of the main source of jobs that we're going to create. On to the next, it's not about him. This is number 7, not about him. It's a movement. He's not egocentric. I feel like a lot of people, including Donald Trump, probably ran for president, not because he cares about working people, but because he's egocentric and he wants the title. He wants to be president. So we know that Bernie Sanders is not egocentric. He's a 70-year-old man. He probably wants to be at home chilling with his grandchildren, but he feels that he's the only one that can do what needs to happen through a political revolution. So that's why his slogan is not me, us. You know, Hillary Clinton's was stronger with her, right? Because she's egocentric, it's about her. But for Bernie, it's not me, it's us. It's all of us. That's why we talk about when he gets into the White House, how to implement his policies. That's just the beginning. Getting him into the White House is just the beginning. We need to stand up against the rich and powerful and the corporate elites. And the way that we're going to do that is not just through him, it's through a movement of people. And there's millions of people in this movement. We just hit 5 million individual donors. So yeah, we have a movement. It's not just about him. I could care less if I love Bernie and I like his personality, but that's irrelevant. I don't care if it's gay, straight, white, black, whatever, Asian, tall, short, young, old, it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is his policy positions, and his policy positions are correct. So that's why I put that at number 7, because it's not about him, it's about a movement. Number 6, I put invest in infrastructure. And I think this is extremely important because our infrastructure gets a grade of D+. If you've ever driven on a road in the United States, you know how horrible it is. So he'll invest in infrastructure, and that's another way that we create millions of jobs by people rebuilding our infrastructure and good paying jobs. And yeah, I put that there, man. You know that we're crumbling. We have like the worst infrastructure of the modern nations. So yeah, it's extremely important to invest in our infrastructure. On to the next, number 5, I put raises the minimum wage. This is already actually passed in the House, and to build onto this, obviously, if you're watching this video, you know that's important to raise the minimum wage. People can't survive off of starvation wages. The minimum wage is not a living wage, and in my view, it needs to be a living wage. So you can't own a 1-bedroom apartment in any state in America off the federal minimum wage. So we need to raise the minimum wage. It's already passed in the House, which in my mind means that when Bernie, that was crazy. A $15 minimum wage was insane in 2016 when he ran for president. But since he put it at the forefront, it actually passed in the House of Representatives, and it's sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk. So if he were to sign that and Trump were to sign it, it'd be put in a law, and everybody would be making at least $15 an hour in America, which is extremely important. And I know people say that minimum wage is just for high schoolers, but that's not true, because the vast majority of minimum wage workers are actually people who are grown up, who own houses, well, apartments, which they can barely even do, have multiple jobs. So yeah, the minimum wage has to be raised. That's just a must, and that's why I put that at number 5. Number 4, these are 2 huge things. He's going to cancel all student debt in America. And if you really think about it, student debt is a ridiculous idea. The idea that you want to better yourself, so you go to school and you have to pay thousands of dollars to be in debt for the rest of your life. I mean, that's ridiculous. My dad's still in debt and he's 60 years old. So that's insane, man. And we need to move past it. We need to join every other modern country in having tuition-free college. And that's another thing to build off of. He's not just going to cancel student debt, but he's going to eliminate student debt forever, because we're going to make colleges and universities tuition-free along with trade schools. And there was another thing I wanted to say about that, build off that, but I can't remember what it was. So I might like add in a little like reading thing, like a little line of text, if I can remember what that is after. I can't remember what I was gonna say, but on to number 3. He's gonna take on the 1%. So for far too long, the 1% has, I just remember what I was gonna say, so I'm gonna go back to that real quick. I was going to say that college used to be a good investment, and now it's not. So it used to be really worth your time to invest $1,000 back in like the 80s to go to school, because you'd obviously make that back and pay that back like almost like that after you got a college job. But since wages are stagnant since the 1980s, it's not a good investment anymore. That's why it needs to be free. But back to what I was going to say. On to number 3, takes on the 1%. So we need to take on the billionaire class in this country, because they buy and pay for everything. The top 1% makes like 90% of all new income. So the wealth and income inequality in America is off the charts, dude, off the charts. And I think his wealth tax idea is amazing. If you don't know about that, look into that. I think that his marginal tax rate idea is amazing. Look into that. During the golden age of economic expansion, the marginal tax rate was 90%. So what he's talking about is a 70% marginal tax rate, which isn't really that high when you compare it to the rest of the world. And yeah, he takes on the 1% in powerful corporations and makes them pay their fair share in taxes. Amazon paid 0 in federal taxes last year. That has to change. That has to change. Number 2, and this is going to be the Green New Deal. Him and AOC work on this. And the Green New Deal is extremely important because, I don't know, maybe it saves our planet. So a thing that I like to bring up a lot with this is people on the right, conservatives, like to talk about immigration and how immigration is a huge issue, and we don't want immigrants in America. If you think that there's an immigration problem now, wait until the Middle East is uninhabitable because of climate change. That will be a real immigration issue, and that'll be crazy. So we need to invest in renewable energy now. We need to wean off fossil fuels, and actually, if you think about it, we wouldn't have to have wars over oil if we invested into weaned off fossil fuels and invested in renewable energy. So his Green New Deal is extremely important in my mind, and I think that a lot of young people realize the effects of climate change. Maybe older people don't care about it because they might not be around to see it, but if you're a good human, you actually care about other people. You know that climate change is a huge issue, and we need to wean off fossil fuels, and the Green New Deal does that. So, the Green New Deal. And on to number one. So, the number one reason why I support Bernie Sanders for president is Medicare for all. Yeah, never would have saw that one coming, huh? But if you've heard anything about Bernie Sanders ever, it's something to do with Medicare for all, and there's a lot of fake news to steal that term from somebody about Medicare for all. But Medicare for all is an amazing idea. It's kind of what made me look into Bernie Sanders. The idea that healthcare is a human right, not a privilege. That the idea that 45,000 Americans die every year because they can't afford basic care in America is ridiculous. The idea that hundreds of thousands of Americans go bankrupt because they have medical bills is ridiculous. If you get sick, you get help, just like every other modern country. And that's what Medicare for all does. It expands Medicare over a 4-year period to cover everybody. It expands for seniors to cover dental, hearing aids, and eyeglasses. And yeah, that's just, it saves money over a 10-year period. 37 trillion is what status quo costs. 32 trillion is what Medicare for all costs. If you want to talk about how we pay for it, we pay for it through, like I said, taking on the 1%, making them pay their fair share in taxes. And we also pay for it through, we raise taxes, but you have to understand that if I say that you have to pay $1,000 in taxes right now, but you're paying $10,000 to a private tax of your private health insurance industry, you're net saving $9,000. So just by definition, because you raise taxes, does not mean that you're losing money because you're not paying co-payments, premiums, or deductibles. So if you're gonna vote for Bernie Sanders on anything, it's Medicare for all. That is the number one issue for me, because I believe healthcare is a human right. And when I see kids with cancer who are sick, who can't afford healthcare, and their parents go into debt, that makes me sick. And in the richest country in the world, in the history of the world actually, healthcare should be guaranteed to its citizens, just like every other modernized country has done. If you really believe America is the greatest country on earth, you'd fight for everybody to have healthcare, because then we'd at least be caught up in that region. We rank 11 out of 11 according to a Commonwealth study when it comes to healthcare in the modern nations. So we need Medicare for all now. We needed it 20 years ago. We needed it 50 years ago. FDR was talking about this. JFK was talking about this. Almost every. So let's go ahead and invest in the healthcare that every human is entitled to. I don't care what you say. Humans are entitled to healthcare because it's a human right. So that's my stance on that. And I've been reading this book. It's called Bernie Sanders, Where We Go From Here. It's what he wrote after he lost the 2016 primary to Hillary Clinton, which, if you know anything about anything, we know that that was rigged, and he didn't really lose, but yeah, so that we're going to change that this time around. But I felt like this is the best time to make this video right now, because we have the caucus on February 3rd. And if you really want true change, if you want a champion of change, then this is who you go to. This is who you go to caucus for, Senator Bernie Sanders. Thank you guys for watching. And like I said, this list is not set in stone. It's just my opinion on where we stand, where I stand on the issues. And yeah, let me run through it one more time. So we got experience at 10, beats Trump, creates millions of jobs. Not about him, it's about a movement. Invest in infrastructure, raises minimum wage, cancels student debt, and makes college tuition free, and trade schools, don't forget about that. Takes on the 1%, invest in a Green New Deal to renew our energy, and Medicare for all. So thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to reach out to me. If you know me, reach out to me about Bernie, man. I'm always down to have a conversation, a civil conversation about Senator Bernie Sanders and why I support him. And I know I take heat for supporting him because I live in Iowa, a rural part of Iowa, where actually he would help like the people the most, but people just don't seem to understand that, or maybe it just hasn't clicked yet. But yeah, if you have any questions, leave them in the comment below. And thank you for watching. Have a nice day, guys. Thank you. All right, real quick, I just wanted to add it in one more quality that I completely forgot about, and it slipped my mind for some reason, even though this is probably in my top 3. So another thing that I really like about Bernie Sanders, and this falls in the top 3 for sure, is his record, man. He walked along with Martin Luther King in the civil rights era. He's been on the side of marriage equality since the 1980s. He's been on social issues. He's been correct all along. He voted against the Iraq War, which was probably the worst foreign policy decision in modern American history. And he was correct on it, man. He's been fighting for single-payer health care, tuition for college since the 1980s. He's been correct on issues since long before I was born, since most of you were born, since my parents were in high school. Like, he has been fighting for social and political and economic change in the United States forever. And that's what I love about Bernie Sanders. And that's why I think you should vote for him and caucus for him on February 3rd. Thank you. Have a nice day.